Hello.
Oh yeah, it's a Friday night. It's Friday night hangout. Let's celebrate. A season of new beginnings. Let's rejoice. Thank God it's Friday. It's Friday night hangout. Let's celebrate. A season of new beginnings. Let's rejoice. Thank God it's Friday.
Hello, confidence. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, good evening. How are you? Let's just give some few more minutes for more people to join in. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Yes. I want to see your TGIF as you join in. The TGIF as you join in. Good evening, Ihechi. How are you? Yes, yes, yes. Welcome, 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 welcome. I look good. Thank you. I feel good as well. Hello, my sister Theodora. Nice to have you in here. Thank God it's Friday. I want to see your TGIF as you're joining in. Thank God it's Friday. I feel good. La 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 la. Who is feeling good tonight? I'm glowing. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Hello, Florence. Welcome in. Welcome in. Good evening. Thank God it's Friday. I hope you feel good. Yes, yes, yes. We're going to start off very shortly. Let's just wait for more people to join in. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Thank God It's Friday. Welcome, 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 welcome. We're in our season 7, and this is our 91 episode. Ooh, the 91 episode. Oh my goodness, the 91st episode. Yay! You like my energy this evening? I feel good this evening. I feel happy. Thank you for noticing the energy. Yeah. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome once again to the Friday night hangout. I'm super excited, always excited to welcome you. And my name is Joy Onyesoh, your host for the Friday night hangout. And if this is your first time of joining in, I'm saying a big welcome. This is your space. Yes, you heard me right. This is your space. This is a space where we interact, where we just exchange, we learn and unlearn, and we just expand on all fronts. So, a very big welcome to you. And this month is April. The month of April, we're having conversations on health and wellness, and our focus is on the health and wellness of women. And very specifically tonight, we're going to be having a very matured conversation on women's sexuality, basically women's sexual health. So we're going to be looking at women's sexual health tonight. And I want you, if you don't have your writing pen, your journal, please do get it out because we're going to be having some very frank conversation tonight. As always, I will invite you to please join in, make this very interactive. You have a friend, you have a sister, you have a colleague who needs to be on this show tonight. Please bring them all in. Bring them all in. And I want us to have a conversation together. How has your week been? Oh, my week has been very interesting. It's been very heavy, but very interesting. And you can imagine why I am so happy that today is Friday. Even though I'm not happy that in the southeast, here in Enugu, I'm in Enugu right now, we had a sit at home, and so I worked basically from the house. I don't know what is happening where you are. Please let me know where you're joining in from. If you're joining from Enugu, from Lagos, from wherever, put it in the chat box. I want to know where you're joining in from tonight. Let me know where you're joining in from. So let us know where you're joining in from. And of course, Do not forget to put your TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. And if you look around and you haven't seen a tribe member here, please let them know that we're on, we're live, and the show is on. Confidence says she's joining in from Anambra. Welcome, Confidence, all the way from Anambra. It's always a pleasure to have you tonight. Now, like I said much earlier, we're going to be having frank conversation on women's sexual health as part of the broader conversation on health and wellness. Now, this conversation is very important because women's sexual health affects both our emotional and our physical health, and is one aspect of our health that we rarely do talk about. It almost seems like it's taboo, and we don't talk about it enough. Let me see. Oh, thank God I'm back. My network is acting up tonight, but I'm resilient and we're going to go through the conversation. I'll be right here. So if my network acts up, please just stay tuned with me and do know that I'm still here. We're going to have the conversation. So I was saying before the network kicked me out that discussing women's sexual health seems almost like a taboo in our climate. Now, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to even, you know, behave as if we even have anything, any conversation, even behind the doors on sexuality. But hey, that's why I said tonight is a matured conversation for matured minds. And so we want to look at women's sexual health, and we're going to talk about a whole lot of things around it. Now, I want to state that women's sexual health is as important as men's sexual health. Now, when you look at the social media, you read magazines, you read books, there's a lot of focus on men's sexual health. There's a lot of focus on men's sexuality. People feel comfortable talking about it. Even we, women, we feel so comfortable talking about men's sexuality. But when it comes to our sexuality, we just cringe. We're so shy. We don't want to go there. And this is for a number of reasons. Like I said earlier on, one is the culture of silence, and the culture of silence finds roots in our cultural and religious background. And so there is some kind of unspoken code that we're not meant to be talking about our sexuality. But tonight, yes, remember that we're just coming from the Women's Month of March, where we talked about breaking the gender bias. And one of the ways we're going to break the gender bias tonight is to have an open and frank conversation on women's sexual health. Okay, I see a lot of people say joining from Enugu, Anambra. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I see my sister all the way from Connecticut, USA. Welcome. And if you're just joining in, please put your TGIF. I want to see your TGIF. My network is acting up tonight, but please bear with me and stay with me. We're going to have this conversation tonight. So if you're just joining us, I want to say very big welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're joining in at the right time. We are having conversation on women's sexual health, and we're going to have a very matured, open conversation. I want us to use the chat box. I want us to use emojis. I want us to just make this conversation very interactive. I want to feel that you're here with me. I want to practically be able to see you through your comments in the chat box. So I know that I'm not alone. I have you with me. Welcome, Philomena from Kaduna. Welcome, Chinel, all the way from Oka. It's such a pleasure to have you join us here tonight. Now, I'm reiterating it again. This conversation is for very matured minds. And I was saying that talking about women's sexual health seems like a taboo because there's a culture of silence around it. And this stems from both our cultural and our religious background. Now we feel that it is improper, perhaps even wayward, to talk about women's sexual health. And when you're having frank conversation on sexuality, people will look at you in a very funny way. Yeah. But like I said, we want to break the bias tonight to have very frank conversation. Now, when we talk about women's sexual health, what are we actually talking about? What are we actually talking about? We're talking about our sexuality, we're talking about our sexual needs, we're talking about our responses, we're talking about what impacts on our sexual responses, our sexual activity, and all of that. So that is the conversation we're having tonight. And um, we're going to be having very frank conversation. If you have experiences, if you have questions, if you have comments, please use the chat box. I want to see the emojis, I want to see the comments, and I want to just feel you as we move along in this conversation. Now, this is very important for us to have a conversation on, because a lot of marital relationship, have been destroyed for lack of conversation on women's sexuality. So you are married and you still feel ashamed to have conversation with your husband on your sexual needs, on your sexual preferences. My dear, we need to break that barrier tonight. We need to break that barrier tonight. We need to talk about it, and talk about it candidly, just like you would talk about any other issue. As long as you're having sex within the confines of marriage, you should feel very comfortable having this kind of conversation. And it's also important to know what to expect, to even know when it's time for you to see your health practitioner. So please, let's be very open, have an open mind as we go along in this conversation. Now, I want to start from the perspective that your sexual health impacts on your totality. It impacts on your emotional health. It impacts on your physical health. Oh, yes, it does. It does impact on both your physical and your emotional health, your mental health. And so it's important that you understand the place your sexual health plays in your total wellness, and begin to take steps, if you're not already taking steps, to address the need, to discover you, to know you, and to have frank conversation with your spouse. Now, within the confines of marriage, from experience and also from reading and from interactions, there are a number of issues that I do know that impact on women's sexual needs, women's sexual responses, and it's important that this conversation is had frankly with your spouse. Because sometimes your husband would not know what you want. He's not a soothsayer, neither is he a spirit to know what is in your mind, to read your mind as to what you want, as to what is happening with you. And so you need to be able to express yourself. I understand that this is not a one cap size fits all, because it also depends on who you're married to and the mindset of who you're married to. So it's also important that the conversations we have here tonight, you need to contextualize it and adapt it to your particular relationship. So do not just carry everything and just run with it. Take what you have to take here, reflect, and know how you use discernment and wisdom to apply it to your relationship. I hope I am speaking to someone here tonight. I want to say to the chat box, yes, 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 in the chat box before I continue. So I know you're with me. I'm waiting for the first yes. Once I see the first yes, I know you're with me on this conversation, and then I'll move forward. I'm waiting for the first yes. All right, I have the first yes from Stella. Yes, thank you. I have my second yes. Great. So you're with me and the conversation continues. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Even Theodora, thank you so much. Now, it's important that you have this conversation. There is nothing wrong with you. Now, the society we live in have made us to feel that it is very wrong for a woman to feel her body. It is very wrong for a woman to have sexual needs. It's very wrong for a woman to speak about her sexual needs. So they make it look as if there's something wrong with you, that you're abnormal, that you are not okay, and you're demonic. I want to debunk all those myths and narrative tonight. It is very healthy as an adult woman to understand your sexuality and your body. And it is very healthy and right to have that conversation with your husband. It is very, very important that you have frank conversation with your husband. Like I said earlier on, he is not going to know what you need. He is not going to know. He'll just be doing what we say in Igbo land, tumbon tumbon. And that's a guesswork. What it simply means is he's going to be playing a guess game. If you're not comfortable with your partner, with your spouse, to speak about your sexual needs, then who do you want to speak about it with? Now, even the Bible lets us know that it is wrong for married couples to deprive themselves of um, sex without superior conversation and without agreement. The book of Ephesians points us to that. And so I want to start from the religious perspective now, because that is where I see a lot of the barriers. That is where I see a lot of the challenges. Because we feel that when you talk about sex, when you talk about your sexual needs, it means that there is something wrong with you and you're not spiritual. My dear, sex is not just a physical activity, it's both a spiritual and emotional and a physical activity. So you need to feel very comfortable discussing sex with your husband. For crying out loud, why can't you discuss the issue? You need to feel very comfortable. Very, very important to have conversation with our spouse. Yes, very, very important. Because you don't have conversations. He doesn't know what you want. He doesn't even know what makes you feel good. And he will just be assuming. And we'll just be assuming. And then we keep saying, pray, 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 pray. My dear, it's not everything that needs prayers. Let's stop deceiving ourselves. There are certain things that very candid conversation will solve. This is a very simple, matured conversation to have with your spouse. Ask what he wants. And he should be able to tell you what he wants. And you should be able to tell him what you want and how you want it. That is why you're married, for crying out loud. So that conversation needs to be had. And for you to be able to say what you want, it means you need to be in a place of awareness where you. Oh my goodness. I'm going to translate that. Iroma says, and what it means is that women are ashamed to talk about sex. Chinelo says, nice topic, especially in the romance and sex area. When I hear women say they are ashamed to tell their husband that he is not satisfying them, I always give advice. The first time we have the conversation, it wasn't easy, but I was prepared and was mindful of my choice of words. And today we feel comfortable discussing it, and even now we want it at a particular. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Chinelo, for sharing this candid experience. There are a lot of women who still feel ashamed to discuss with their husband how they want it. They feel very uncomfortable to discuss sex with their husband. How? In this time and age. It can feel very awkward the first time you try it since you're not used to it. So the first thing I want you to do is to acknowledge that you can be anxious, you can feel uncomfortable. That's okay. Very okay. Excuse me. That is okay, very okay, because it's the first time you're having that kind of conversation. So it's okay. But one, you need to acknowledge that. Acknowledge your discomfort. Two, you need to be very careful of your choice of words, like Chinelo said. You don't want to go brandishing words up and down and saying things and accusing him, and so you don't want to go accusing him of being insensitive, of not paying attention to your needs when you haven't even discussed your needs. Excuse me. So you need to start by allotting a special time when he is relaxed and when you're relaxed to have that kind of conversation. And if it's the first time you're having that kind of conversation, I would encourage you not to make it a very lengthy conversation so it doesn't become awkward. You can just allot maybe like 10 minutes or less or thereabout, depending on the mood and what you see. And you have that conversation the first time just to introduce it. See how your partner or your husband reacts, how he receives it, and give it time to absorb it, to internalize where you're coming from before pushing the conversation further. Because if you're not used to having that conversation, the first thing would be, where is this coming from? What is happening? What is happening here? Is she being influenced, or is something else happening? So you need to know that that kind of scenario may play out. So you need to be very mindful and intentional how you have these conversations. Now, the next thing is, if he is not satisfying you, I don't want you to jump right into that, because you haven't even expressed what your needs are. So, how would he even know he's not satisfying you? So, you need to have that front conversation. I enjoy it when you do one, two, three to me. I prefer it when we have it at this particular time of the day. Now, remember that there is a lot of things that happen with women, also with men, but tonight I'm focusing on women. There are a lot of things that happen with women that also affects our sexual responses, and the frequency we want sex and all of those. And I'm going to look at some of the factors that affects our sexual responses after we talk about how to have candid conversation with our spouse. So we've talked about two things. The first one is accept that you want to have this conversation. You're feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling anxious because you've not had it before. It's okay to feel that way, because you have been groomed and socialized in a certain way where there's a culture of silence around your sexual health, there's a culture of silence around your sexual needs. So it's not easy to just break that barrier. You don't just break it at once, it's a process. So give yourself time, be patient with yourself and your spouse. Because if your spouse is not used to you having that kind of conversation, he may be feeling uncomfortable as well when you're discussing such. So it depends on the kind of person you're married to. And that's why I said it's not a one cap size fits all. You need to know the kind of relationship you have with your spouse. You need to know him and understand how he reacts to issues. And then you choose the best approach and the best time to have this kind of matured conversation. The second thing is have a time, set time out. This is not the conversation to have when you're in a hurry, is in a hurry, or things are not working out, or you're having arguments and then you decide to throw it in. My dear, that is not the right time to have the conversation. Then I also want you to reflect on the kind of relationship you have with him. What is your relationship like? Do you need to first build your relationship before you go into that conversation? That's for you to decide. I keep saying it is not a one cap size fits all. Know you, know your man, and know your relationship. Now, I also want to talk about emotional intimacy. You can be in a relationship, that's a marital relationship, without being emotionally connected. And if you're not emotionally connected, of course, it's going to affect the kind of conversation you have, especially when you want to have conversation around sex. It's going to have it's also going to affect your sexual activity and your sexual responses, because the chemistry, sex has a lot to having fulfillment and enjoyment. When you make love, has a lot to do with your emotional intimacy, your chemistry. What kind of chemistry do you have? This is very, very important. So you need to sit back, reflect on this, and have frank conversation with your man on these issues. Yeah? Okay. Now, take it one step at a time. Do not overflog the issue. Don't throw everything all out. And there, excuse me, please. You also need to know yourself. Excuse me. You can't have this conversation, a very frank conversation, if you do not know you. So you need to know you, and you need to know what pleasures you. And you would know how, as someone might ask me, how would you know that? By the time you get married and you engage in sex with your husband, love making, with time you would get to know what pleases you, what doesn't please you. And the truth is, sometimes we have very weird partners. We need to talk about that. Weird partners that want to make us do weird things that we're not comfortable with. I want to put that out here. You shouldn't be made to participate in weird things that you're not comfortable doing. It cannot be pleasurable to you when you're being asked by your husband to engage in very weird sexual practices. So that is why this conversation is very important. You need to be frank and you need to be able to speak out to say, you see this one, I cannot do this one. This is why I can't do this. I'm not comfortable doing this for so and so reasons. And they have that conversation. And so even yourself, when you want certain things and you need certain things, especially relating to love making, when you speak to him, you also have to give him room to express himself as to if it's something he's disposed to doing, why he's not disposed to do it if he says no, and come to a matured space. You don't force your needs on him. Likewise, you shouldn't force his needs on you. But you should be able to come to a middle ground where both of you are happy with what you're, with the level of conversation and the sexual activities you're going to engage in. That a man married you doesn't make you his sexual slave. A lot of women are living in bondage, especially when it comes to sexuality, where your husband makes you engage in some animalistic practices that you're so ashamed to talk about. You've not even been able to talk about normal sexual practices, then now you're being made to do some animalistic practices and you can't even talk about it. There are certain practices that you engage in that is detrimental to your total health, both your physical health, your emotional health, even your sexual health. So you need to recognize that and develop the willpower of saying no and telling him why you can't engage in that and stand your ground. The world has gone crazy, and a number of people have also gone crazy, and they're seeking extreme pleasure through sexual activity. So you need to be able to balance it and really look at what he's requesting of you and what you're requesting of him from a balanced perspective. So this is very critical. Mjideka's Chizoba says, women from our generation are ashamed to talk about sex because of the orientation we had about sex. Our mothers were not taught about it, and so discussing it was a taboo. Exactly. Exactly. That's what we're saying. Your cultural and social, religious orientation matters a lot in your ability to have frank conversations on sex with your husband. So this is very important that we're having this conversation tonight. Now, you need to know, I'm saying this and I'm having this conversation tonight because of some of the issues that have been brought to me, because of some of the issues I've had to intercede in and within marriages. And I do know that a lot of women are in sexual bondage within marriage. Their husbands are making them do things that are detrimental to their health and to their well being. And you need to be able to say no. You need to have a trusted either family member or someone that your husband looks up to be able to speak to him. Stop keeping quiet. Stop keeping quiet. I had a woman, unfortunately, by the time she came to me, a lot of physical damage has been done on her sexual organs. And, well, she had to seek medical help, and it was bad. She's still recuperating. And a lot of this would have helped, she would have been helped much earlier if she had the courage to speak out. So I do know that there's a lot of silence around it. And this is partly why we're having this conversation tonight. To let us know that it is okay. We should need to feel comfortable discussing sex within marriage, just like we discuss the weather, just like you discuss clothes, just like you discuss fashion, just like you discuss education. You will need to be matured and have an open mind in having this conversation because it could save a life or more. So when it gets to that extreme sexual practices, please, please, you need to be able to call him to order. Now, Chinelo says, especially having sex from the buttocks. This one was one of the issues that arises from a friend marriage. Thank God my husband was able to talk sense to the man and they are good now. Exactly. Now, Some husbands will want to have anal penetration of their wives instead of vaginal penetration. Hello, let's not scream and say, ha ha. Some of us are in that situation here watching. Some of you already know friends, families who are going through this, and they are so ashamed to speak out, and their anus is being destroyed by their husband. And they're doing all of this all in the name of keeping their marriage. Let me tell you, you cannot destroy yourself to keep your marriage. A man who loves you, a man who treasures you, a man who cherishes you is going to be concerned or will be concerned about your total wellness. He will not ask you to engage in practices that will dehumanize you, that will put you at risk. So, my dear, that is not love. When a man starts scattering, and oh my goodness, some women are going through a lot of marriages. And you say because that is what he wants. That is what he wants until you start having leaking anus. And you know that is not what he wants until you start wearing pad. So please, let's be mindful of some of the things we subject ourselves to because we feel we're in love, because we feel that we want to keep the man, that we don't want him to go out and have it elsewhere. So you want to do it so you can keep him and make him stay. If you're not comfortable with any sexual practice your husband is asking of you, please feel free to say no and stand your ground. And if he insists, look for a family member that he respects, that is much older and who have been in marriage for a longer period to have that conversation with, frank conversation that can talk to him. This is very important. And that is why we are having this conversation tonight. Okay? Now, it's also very important that you can express to your husband when Christella says they call abuse submission in our culture. They call abuse submission in our culture. And so many women have been destroyed because of certain practices that are detrimental to their health. Exactly. A lot of women have been destroyed. And they're doing this and saying that they want to keep the man, that they want to say this. You know, some men are closet gays. We need to have this frank conversation. Some husbands are closet gays. They don't feel comfortable coming out in our society to say that they are gay and to free the woman and go seek their sexual pleasures elsewhere. Rather, they want to stay and destroy the woman while having their satisfaction. So some husbands are closet gays. A lot of issues came up during the COVID-19 pandemic when there was a lockdown. Oh my goodness, we had a lot of cases. A lot of closet gays came out because then they were stuck in the home, no going out, nowhere else to satisfy themselves, and they were stuck with their wives. And they started practicing with their wives. A lot of marriages broke down during that period. So if he starts asking you to do very funny things you're not comfortable doing, please speak out. I'm re-emphasizing this because I do know that a number of women are going through this situation and feel ashamed to talk about it. I want to let you know that you're not alone. You don't feel ashamed to talk about it because you're not the only one going through that situation. You're not alone. There is nothing new under the sun. You're not the first person, neither are you going to be the last person. So you need to free yourself from that bondage and talk about it. If maybe your doctor or find someone trusted who will not use that to mock you, somebody you trust, because I know how it is a very sensitive conversation. So find someone that you trust with that information and have that conversation and pour out before you're destroyed. Now, I also want to talk about the issue of women that have just put to bed, that have just delivered a newborn baby, either through vaginal delivery or CS delivery, and then they have a husband who have an extraordinary high libido and is not sensitive enough to know that he needs to follow the doctor's um, um, direction before resuming sex with the wife. That he needs to know that the wife has healed and is emotionally and physically ready. I've had a lot of cases in that arena. And so some women would, because they're afraid that their husband will go out and have sex, even though she's hurting, even though she hasn't healed from the trauma of childbirth, because she's afraid that the husband will go out, she submits and then she's destroying herself in the process. My dear, a man that loves you will wait for you. And there are other ways both of you can discuss of that is why mature conversation is important. There are other ways both of you could discuss of making sure that your sexual needs are met within the confines of marriage and within what is acceptable. Now, this is why conversation is very important. That is why conversation is very important. So please have this frank conversation with your husband within all the scenarios. You don't wait until you put to bed and then you're not healthy enough to do that. And then why can't you have that conversation up front? And that is why you have the period of courtship. That is why even when if you fail to have the conversation during courtship and you're married, please make out time to have those periodic conversations. Say, Bobo, dude, how far? What is your take on this? Supposing how would you manage yourself? How long can you stay? How long can you go without sex? Ask those conversations. A man that loves you will have that. Will have. Let's stop pretending about these things and using religion to create a lot of problems. A lot of problems we have because we don't want to have candid conversation and we are hiding under the cloak of religion. We're just hiding under the cloak of religion and we don't want to have frank conversation. Chinelo says, once he destroys your system, he will abandon you for another woman. Women, please know what you want and stand up for what you want and what you're not comfortable with. True. Angelica says, this one now is a big case. Elodie says, more women need to get this message and victims need to speak out. We have received many cases of men requesting anal sex with their wives. No woman should tolerate that. And another person says, if a man goes out because you refused anal penetration, let him go out. If you can stay back, no problem. If not, find your way. I can't let anybody abuse me sexually in the name of marriage. Thank God for awareness and all the things I know today. I wish there is a way to pass this message to many women who are suffering in this area. So true. So true. And that's why we're having this conversation. So if you know anyone who needs to hear this, share this video, invite them on, and you that are here, share the message. Ripple effect. That's what we're talking about. We need to be our sister's keeper. You know, we live in a climb. Our society is such that because of the culture of silence, our orientation, we don't like to talk about sex like a taboo. Everybody's pretending. Everybody behaves that, hell, what are you talking about? Within marriage, we know you're having sex, whether you let us know or not. What happens when we see you're pregnant? How did you get the pregnant? Are you now Virgin Mary? So we do know that you're having sex within marriage, whether you're talking about it or not. So we're not saying that you should have obscene conversations about it. We're not asking you to have, obscene jests or conversation, but have adult conversation about it. This is all part of is the totality of marriage. Is that is what we say marriage is an institution. In an institution, you have different components, and this is one major component of that institution. And you need to feel comfortable having this conversation. Now, for those women who have just put to bed, who have just delivered, and their husband is harassing them, forcing them into sexual activities when they are not ready, my dear, you need to run to your doctor and have him invite your husband so that he can explain to your husband the health implication of you going into sexual activities when you're not physically healed already and emotionally ready. Some men feel that they are deprived and they cannot hold themselves and they want to force themselves in, or even when you're still bleeding, when you're still trying to heal, and then you're still struggling, you're trying to still come out from the pain, the trauma, and all that. And then you still have one adult man who has refused to understand what you're going through and wants to force himself into you. We need to have this conversation. It's not okay. It's not okay. I've had a lot of women who have gone back to the hospital again because of starting sexual activity too early when they are not yet healed or ready for that. I can't even begin to imagine it. I can't even begin to imagine it. How can a normal human being, you know what she went through to bring out a life human being, and you don't know that place is going to be all sore? You don't know. And then you just, I don't know how, because sex is meant to be pleasurable. It's meant to be pleasurable. And when there is pain, when it causes you so much pain, where is the pleasure in it? Where is it? So our husbands need to know this, and that's why you need to tell them. For some men, it's out of ignorance. They do not know. They do not know. And so you need to educate them. And you must have your doctor as well. If it becomes challenging, especially in the case of starting sexual activity too soon after delivery, you need to get your doctor involved. I see questions where some people who had CS sessions come to social media to ask, how soon can I start sexual activity? And I'm like, really? Are you really asking us that question on social media? What happened to your doctor? Why can't you ask your doctor? Why are you coming to social media where people have different kinds of responses to give to you, and you can just get, you know, misled? Why don't you ask your doctor? Because he would examine you, he would know, and when he's discharging you from the hospital, he is going to give you some set of instruction, my dear woman, my dear sister. Can you listen to those set of instructions he gives to you? Can you just listen to those set of instructions? Truth is, you can't keep a man who doesn't want to be kept. That is it. Even if you have sex every hour with him, cook and bow before him every day, he will cheat if he wants to. Even if you're the queen of the coast, he will still cheat. So women, Biko, receive sense, love yourself, period. I love that frank talk. Very, very frank. Chisoba says a female medical director once told me about a woman who was having series of miscarriages, not knowing that it was the pathogens. It was the, I can't say this. The pathogens her husband got. Oh, it was the pathogens her husband got from the anus of his gay partner that have cost these women over 8 miscarriages. Oh my goodness, this is so sad. What was when the team of doctors confronted him, he insisted that they don't tell his wife, so women are going through hell. It's like I says, personally, I believe when a man goes out to satisfy himself because the wife refused to give him sex, because she just put to bed, he actually has been harboring that in mind and waiting for that opportunity to arise. How can you be pursuing me up and down just to satisfy yourself? Because I can't come and kill myself. Exactly. You know, but we need to balance the conversation as well. We need to balance it. Because like I said, there are some things that would make a woman not to feel in the mood to have sex, and you need to have that frank conversation with your husband. One, like what we've discussed, just, you know, family, you're just delivering, you're sick, your career, maybe you're too stressed, you're carrying a lot of burden, um your religious orientation, you, maybe you don't know, but it's true. It has made a lot of women to be hesitant in opening up to really allow their husband to enjoy them in the right way. They feel that they're committing sin within the confines of marriage. I don't get it. I really don't get it. You know, when you got married, you need to know that marriage also entails having sexual relationship with your husband, and sexual relationship is not just for procreation, it's also for pleasure. The man needs to be pleasured, and you also need to be pleasured, and it is not a sin within the confines of marriage. Now, there are some women, I want to talk about the libido issue because it's also important that when we talk about libido, we're talking about sexual drive, your sex drive. It's also important that you understand your sex drive. Now, some women have, we are all different as women, we're all different as men. So, some people have a higher sex drive than the others. It doesn't make it wrong. But there are some that are really extraordinary and you need to seek medical attention. But if it's not extraordinary, like there are some people that have, we all have varying sexual drive. And so you need to also study your partner. And these are things you need to have conversation on. Because your partner may be one that he's driven, he just wants to be pleasured by his wife, he needs to have sex more often than you need it. And so you need to have that conversation so there could be a balance. There could be a balance. There may be nothing wrong with him for having a higher sexual drive than you, and there's certainly nothing wrong with you having lower sexual drive than he does, or you having a higher sexual drive than your husband. It goes in that way. Because some wives have a higher sexual drive than their husband, and they feel ashamed to tell their husband, "Oh, my husband, I need sex," so that he doesn't feel that you're wayward. Hello, hello, this is your husband we're talking about. If you feel like having sex with your husband, please tell him he's your partner and that is what he's meant for, amongst other things. So you should be feel frank and you should feel comfortable discussing such things with him. Now, there are certain women who don't want to have sex at all. They're afraid of having sex. This may be because of previous history. Maybe they've gone through rape at an early age, they've had traumatic sexual responses, and that has made them frigid. That has made them, they don't respond, they are afraid, they're traumatized. Please, can you discuss this with your partner? Be frank. If you've had previous experiences that has impacted on your sexual health, you need to have that conversation with him and you need to seek help. Because it's not fair on the man for you to be depriving him. For a sexually healthy man, there's nothing wrong with him, and he needs to be pleasured by his wife, and you keep denying him with one excuse or the other that are not valid. So if your excuses are not valid just because you're afraid, you don't like sex, why did you get married? Why did you get married to punish the son of man? Listen, you need to discuss with your doctor and you need to have frank conversation with your husband. So we do know that there are some women that have issues. Remember, we're talking about women's sexual health and we're looking at the different scenarios. We're looking at issues that we've looked at issues that affect your sexual health. We've looked at some of the impact. We've talked about the need for you to have frank conversation with your husband and the need for you to be open, to communicate freely. We've talked about the importance of emotional intimacy within your relationship and for you to set out time to have this frank conversation. It's also important for you to have a routine. The routine mustn't be such that you're just focused on one particular thing, but the routine may be having periodic conversation, ensuring that you check in with yourself. Babe, how are you doing? Am I satisfying you? Do you need more? Are you okay? Is there anything else? My dear, feel free to have this with your man. Feel free to have this with your husband, please. That's why he's your husband. We're so ashamed to have frank conversation. And then we prefer to spend hours fasting and pray. Stella, don't make me choke with this your emojis. Stella, please don't make me choke with this your emojis. Why are you laughing now? What's making you laugh? Are we not having frank conversations here? It's the truth now. We need to have those kind of frank conversation. You know, I know that some of us are old school. Some of us, our husbands are old school. But you need to find a way of breaking through that barrier of old school. Find an inlet. There has to be an entry point. Because whether he's old school or not, or whether, okay, see Jeka's comment. Let me see Jeka's comment. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying. Okay, thanks so much for clarifying. So, no, are you imagining Jideka? Jideka can kill someone with laughter. You know, whether he's old school or you're old school, you need to find a way of breaking that barrier. He's old school, you're old school, but you have sex. So find a time when your old school time. There's a, you know, everything has an approach. There's an old school approach, and there's, you know, the modern approach as well, 21st century approach. Like I said, it's not the one cap fits all size. You know, you need to find out what works for you and what works for your spouse, and take it, adapt it, and make it work in your marriage. So let's say I'm old and new school prof. You can be a mix. That's the thing. Excuse me. You can be a mix. I have cough, so I'm managing it and trying to have this conversation. So bear with me. I have a little cold, so just bear with me. You can be a mix of old and new school. That's okay. The most important thing is that you know yourself. And once you know yourself, that is the first step in ensuring that your sexual health is top notch. Okay? So, as we are wrapping up the conversation tonight, thank you so much, Princess. Thank you so much. Now, it's time to wrap up the conversation. I hope you got value from this. I want to see it in the chat box. Did you get value? Do you want us to repeat the conversation? What else do you want us to discuss in terms of women's sexual health or women's health and wellness? Put it in the chat box, please. I'm reading, I'm listening. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about the importance of women's sexual health as it impacts on women's emotional and physical health. We also talked about some of the factors that can impact on a woman's sexuality. We looked at different things from social commitments, religion, socialization process, stress, career, um, lack of our self awareness, lack of self confidence. So we looked at all of this. We also talked about the need to break the culture of silence around some unhealthy sexual practices that happens within marriage, because we recognize that some husbands are closet gays and are making their wives go through a lot and are infecting their wives a lot of diseases. You need to be able to speak out and seek medical attention. Do not try to medicate yourself. When you find out that you have an infection, please take your spouse, go and see a doctor. If he refuses to go, please go see and let your doctor advise you on what to do. Now, in as much as we're talking about closet gays, we also have closet lesbians who would refuse to satisfy their husbands because they're not interested in having sex with him because they feel satisfied by a woman. My dear, stop traumatizing the man. Why did you get married to him when you know that you're not open to such sexual practices? You need to be true to yourself and stop hiding and deceiving somebody and creating and traumatizing your husband emotionally, physically, and otherwise. The same way that a woman can be traumatized is the same way a man can be traumatized. So please, no one forced you to get married. No one forced you to get married. um, Stella says, let's repeat this topic. We're never too old to learn. We can talk about sexual behaviors or language. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to do that next week. We're going to continue this conversation next week. We're going to talk about sexual behaviors and sexual languages. We're going to do that. And we're going to talk about love language. We're going to, so I'm writing it down. Just bear with me. Uh, yes. So we're going to talk about this next. We're going to continue this conversation next week. So we're wrapping up, and in conclusion, please know yourself, be comfortable to speak out when you're abused sexually within your marriage. Also, please be comfortable to speak with your husband frankly. You want to give him pleasure as much as you want to receive pleasure. That is why you're in marriage. It is not a dirty activity. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. If it's dirty, The Bible will not say that you should not deprive yourselves of sex except by mutual consent. Those of you, especially women, because this is more with women, where you're doing fasting and praying and you feel that it's a sin to have sex with your husband, go and look at the Bible book of Ephesians. It is more of a sin for you to deprive your husband of his rights, of his marital rights, because you're fasting and praying. So you cannot fast and pray without having that conversation with him. When you want to fast and pray to the extent that you want to um, abstain from sex, you can't take that decision by yourself. You need to discuss it with your husband. It has to be a mutual agreement. It has to be a mutual agreement. So don't call him a devil or say that he's a devil, that he wants to tempt you. My dear, is his right. Likewise, your husband cannot engage in that without letting you know. And this is also to some pastors, whether female pastors or male pastors, because this is where we have those issues. Female pastor, male pastor, deacon, deaconesses, prophet, prophetesses, and all of us that are that feel that we're so focused on God that having sex is a crime within the confines of marriage. Please, you need to wake up. When we come next week, we're going to look more in depth as to what does the Bible say, because that is what I know. And for my Muslim sisters who are here, we also want to know what the Quran says about that. So please do feel free and come in next week. We're going to have further conversations on this, because what we want to do is to strengthen our marriages. There are different ways of strengthening the marriages and building our understanding and our awareness on this issue helps. It's not only through fasting and prayers. Okay, so I want to thank you all. There's a question here. um Please extend the time, or we can't end this conversation like this. It's like we have to end the conversation like this. We are continuing this conversation next week. We're going to have a part 2 of this conversation next week. So if you know anyone that needs to be on this conversation, please bring them in and let's have this conversation next week. We're going to continue the conversation next week. Okay? All right. Children says in marriage there's a difference between communication and connection and conversation. We need to have more of conversation with our partner. Now, conversation is part of communication. And if you build good communication skills, you can have difficult conversations. Because having sexual conversation between husband and wife is one of the most difficult conversations I have seen women engage in. You see having conversation on sex, you see having conversation on finances. These are two of the most difficult conversations women find to engage in. And we have to break that bias. We have to break it. You need to feel free to have that conversation with your spouse. Okay? Then there's a question here. Ijeka says, how can I not enjoy love making with my husband? It's a taboo. We must come together. We're going to discuss that next week. It's really a taboo, a very big taboo. You must enjoy love making with your husband. If it's not working, we need to find out why it's not working, and we need to make it work. We just need to make it work, because after all, it's all part of the marriage. It's all part of the marriage, and there are certain reasons why. I'm not saying these are all the reasons. Some men do not have an excuse why they go out. It's not in their DNA. Don't let nobody deceive you. It's all a matter of choice, discipline, and desire. When you find a man cheating, he has made up his mind he wants to cheat, because it's a conscious decision to go out and cheat. So it is it's a conversation we're going to have next week. This is my cough. It's a conversation we're going to have next week. So on this note, and let me read the final comments and then we wrap up. We have 1 minute to wrap up. Fasting and prayers have destroyed. Fasting and prayer have destroyed ovulation plans. Exactly. There's a whole lot. So we're going to talk about sexual behaviors next week. We're going to have that conversation, sexual behaviors, sexual languages, and all of that. We're going to have that part 2 of this conversation next week. So I invite you to come right in next week. Come fully prepared. If you have questions, come loaded. Ask me those questions. I will answer. The one I don't have a response to, I will throw it out to our tribe, and we must have someone who has an answer to this. You know, Chinelo says, "Thank you so much, Ian, for bringing this topic up. God bless you, learned a lot. Thank you so much as well for staying tuned." And before I go, I want to also invite you once again. I will keep inviting you because the early bird is on for the She Speaks Summit, happening in Lagos on the 24th and 25th of June 2022. And you know what? We're going to have a conversation on personal awareness. That's part of what we're going to be discussing in the summit. And one area of personal awareness is also sexual awareness. We're going to discuss that because this is an area I see that we're lacking. This is really an area I see we're lacking. A lot of women don't want to have that conversation. They feel it is not good to have that conversation. So we want to break the bias across all forms, all areas, so that we can be a total woman. You are a woman and more. You need to feel comfortable to discuss every part of your life. And you need to feel comfortable expressing your sexual desires and your special needs to your husband. It is not a crime, it is not a taboo, and don't let anyone make you feel less of a woman because you're discussing the sexual needs. It is okay, it is allowed, and the scripture supports it. And you that go on fasting day and night depriving your husband, please have a rethink that the Bible says you should not deprive your husband of sex except by mutual consent. Now, some people have twisted this around to even mean when a woman just have a newborn baby, they now want to force themselves on her. Please, within boundaries. We'll continue this conversation next week. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Please come prepared, share this video, invite your friends, invite your family to come into the conversation next week. And hey, we're going to have so much fun. We're going to be discussing sexual behaviors and languages next week, Friday. Make it a date with us. Next week, Friday is Good Friday, my people. Next week, Friday is Good Friday. We're going to have the conversation next week, Friday. I think so. I think next week, Friday is Good Friday, yeah? All right, it's a public holiday. We're having a public holiday next week, Friday. So come prepared, ladies. Come prepared. Come with your question. Come intentional. And um, says I have a seat already for next week. Great. I'm also excited. I'm looking forward to the conversation next week. So if you know of anyone who needs to be in the conversation, please do invite the person into the conversation. And so before I wrap up, just 1 second. I'm going to be running an Easter promo on the She Speaks Summit for the VIP tickets only. So if you're interested in being part of the She Speaks Summit all the way in Lagos for the VIP tickets, please visit my wall. We're going to have an Easter sales for, instead of 120,000 naira, we're going to have a 72 hours Easter sales for just 85,000 naira. We're going to run the sales from the 11th of April through to the 13th of April, which is Monday next week through to Wednesday next week. So Monday next week through to Wednesday next week, we're opening up for the 72 hours Easter sales. Please grab your seats. Grab your seats. When you attend the summit, you will thank me later. You see, this 5th-year anniversary of the She Speaks Summit is going to be explosive. Day one, we're going to be looking at our personal development, self-awareness, strategic thinking and planning, basic business development. We're going to be looking at business ecosystems. How can you build and leverage your business ecosystem? How can you build a career pathway for yourself? It's going to be hot. The second day, we're going to dive into career development and business development. And for those of you who are registering as a VIP, we're having a breakfast session, coaching session on that 24th for 3 hours. It's going to be explosive. In-depth training sessions. You know, it's going to be explosive that morning. We are also running a hybrid session, so in case distance is no barrier. So if you want to join us virtually for the VIP session, for that breakfast coaching session, we're also running a flat rate of 40,000 naira for the 2 days. And then those that are coming in physically for the VIP, you'll have a special brandness over there. You have a special certificate. You also have a special sitting area. You get a special meet and greet session. And you know me, after every hard day, we know how to rock. You're also going to have a lot of fun that you can trust. You're going to distress. So if you're looking for a place to have fun, if you're looking for a getaway after working so hard, please come to the She Speaks Summit 2022 because it's our 5th year anniversary and we're going to celebrate in a very big way. On that note, I want to say thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for listening. Thank you to my team. Thank you, Uche. Thank you, Adese. Thank you, Emmanuel, for making this work, all the work you do behind the scene to make this a reality. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next week, Friday. Please do share this video, share this video, share this video. We had a very great conversation tonight. And I want each of you to come in with somebody next week. Bring somebody in next week. Bring a woman in next week. Bring a sister in next week. Let us have the concluding part of our conversation. Stella says it's Holy Week. I know it's Holy Week. As everything, sex in marriage is holy. So we're going to have all the holy conversations together, right? Okay. So see you all next week. I hope you got value. I hope you got value. Put it in the chat box. I hope you got value. 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 Yes, yes, yes. Because it says, can't wait for the She Speaks Summit. Amazing opportunity. Yes, grab your opportunity, grab your seat. And I see you next week, Friday. From now, from me to you, you see my t-shirt, Flawless. From Flawless Eom, Flawless Joy to you. It's bye for now. I love you. I honor and celebrate you. I'll see you next week, Friday. Bye for now. See you next week.
Oh yeah, it's a Friday.